Just wanted to get your thoughts on something. We've been operating under the premise that regime supporters would never tolerate basically a surrender deal that left the regime in place but allowed for inspections for of the nuclear sites, permanent U.S. presence in Iran, basically the killers of Soleimani and Khomeini. So that's been the perspective that we've approached the analysis of their response to the negotiations to. But if I'm the regime, I'm looking at basically the presiding disagreements in the remaining leadership is how to preserve the regime, not whether to preserve it. They will basically do anything to keep the regime in place. Assuming it's unlikely, extremely unlikely, but assuming they do agree to a deal that allows for something unacceptable to the supporters, say the permanent U.S. presence in Iran and monitoring of the nuclear sites, giving up the uranium, all that stuff. Are we overestimating that? Because I'm asking because I'm the recent publicity campaign they've been launching. Basically, they're doing shots for the Islamic Republic and the scantily clad women and all these things that have been doing that have upset the supporters. We're not seeing the supporters really push back too hard. So I'm wondering if, no matter how bad the deal is, if you thought that the regime could theoretically remain in place and keep the supporters' support even in the face of otherwise unacceptable terms.
Okay, this is a really good question. So let's go over this. Okay. So
Yeah.
when we talking about the regime supporters versus the regime, you understand the goal of the regime as on average, all different four factions that we have identified within the regime, their main priority is the survival of the regime. Okay, none these ideals, the methods, or whatever, these are the tools for the same goal, the survival of the regime. Okay, the supporters of the regime, they have been trained and brainwashed to one for a specific purpose. Okay, to get angry over certain things, to get angry over certain things, and basically it's like an attack dog, right? And they have been trained to get angry over certain things for decades, and they are very one dimensional with that. It's kind of like that, I don't know, in Rick and Morty, where it says, "What's my purpose?" You pass the butter. Like I said, it's kind of like that. What's my purpose? You get angry when this happens. That's what their purpose is. Okay, and it's really hard for them to basically shift direction. If your purpose is to pass the butter, if I all of a sudden tell you to pass the remote, it doesn't really work. This is what you have been made for the past. So it's really hard to move them into another direction. The misunderstanding that a lot of people have is that, okay, what are the things that these people are supposed to get offended by? Is it the Iranian woman not wearing hijab? No, not necessarily. That's more for the Haidari aligned people, right? So is it I don't know, is it being anti-reformers? So there's a lot of different red lines that are uniquely specific to people of different camps. Okay, but it's not unanimous among all of them, because for example, you were just saying that what they're not pushing back against hijabless women in the streets. Okay, but a lot of the hijabless women in the streets are those people, are the regime, like a lot of those people that are regime supporters. Some of them, at least not a lot of them, some of them, they're like, yeah, let's do this, this is actually the best way. We have some regime supporters, very aggressive regime supporters, who do want the regime to stop being too picky regarding the hijab laws, because they think, oh, we will be able to be more successful in getting love for the regime, love for IRGC, love for Khamenei, if we stop arresting women for not wearing the hijab. To be fair, there are many pro-regime people who think that is vile and disgusting and degenerate, and what the hell are you talking about? This is not the Islamic Republic that I did the revolution for, that I went to war for. These people should be arrested immediately. What are we even doing? Okay, but that is not the unanimous, close to unanimous red lines among all regime supporters, right? I think what defines them more is just as what they're more sensitive about and what they're more eager to see is anti-Americanism, being anti-Israeli, being strong, the Islamic Republic being strong, being dominant in the region, demonstrating military strength, destroying the Islamic Republic enemies, basically rooting for the winners, rooting for the people who are basically humiliating our enemies. We are on this team and we want to see our enemies being destroyed. So being anti-Israeli, being anti-American, being pro-military, being pro-winning in battles, being able to destroy the people who are against us wherever they are, whether they're in Israel, United States, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, or more importantly, inside Iran. So even against regime officials, going against Ghalibaf sometimes is more important than having a hijab. So even some of these people who are pro hijab, pro mandatory hijab, they're not that. Some of them are not really. That is not on their priority list right now. If they see a hijabi woman swear at Ghalibaf, they're like, "Oh my God, yes, go on, sister, say it." Even though if they think that's an arrest worthy offense, that one day this woman should be arrested. Right now, if they're like swearing at Ghalibaf for why are you negotiating with the killers of my supreme leader? Why are you doing this? They would consider that hijabless woman on their side right now. And they would consider Ghalibaf the enemy. They would consider Ghalibaf, who says death to America, as the enemy, and this hijabless woman with makeup on who's swearing at him as an ally, right? So I think people, the best way to understand what these people are sensitive about is to understand where these red lines are and what they're really fighting for. And I think a lot of people are confused because the hijab, like enforcing hijab, was a really important part. It was an important part of a red line that pro-regime people didn't want to back down on. But but they have lost that battle, and because they have lost that battle, they're treating it right now as unimportant. Okay, and it wasn't the foundational, I think, is being anti-Islam. Hijab was always a marketing tactic. It was a tool. It was the billboard of the Islamic Republic to show our domination and our presence and our ability to exert influence and power. Okay, but it was a tool. It wasn't the very core thing that they were fighting for. The core thing that they were fighting for was that dominance, was that strength, was that ability to show that we are powerful and ever present and we could crush our enemies and destroy dissent. And the people who support them, some of them are not even religious, but they support them because they are trying to support what they assume is the winning side of this. And the Americans are the evil ones, the Israelis are the evil ones, the infiltrators of the Zionists in Iran, which means people like Iranians who are basically protesting, are the evil ones, and we will crush them. We have humiliated the Americans. The whole world is watching the Islamic Republic teaching a lesson to Americans. We are still alive. They thought that we would die. When they kill us, we become stronger. And all of, you know what? Look at those their songs, the Lego videos, propagandas that they're making. Okay. It doesn't show, it's not talking about, oh, yeah, we will have hijab again everywhere. That's not what they're advocating for. They're like, we will look, if you look at those Lego propaganda videos, it shows you what people are attracted to because they market what people are attracted to. And what they market is them being able to crush their enemies and Americans and Israelis being humiliated. That's what people are attracted to. And that is the red line. If the red line that people have, the regime supporters, if you cross, will make them lose faith in you, is any undeniable evidence that you're actually losing and you're not winning this. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. But I'm also thinking about it from the regime's perspective. Maybe there's some way I can sign a deal, let the Americans in, and then spin it as a victory, basically trickery. I'm just using this as a way to buy time to rearm. They'll never find our nuclear weapons and things like that. And I'm also thinking about it from the supporters' perspective that I probably would want to support any regime that stays in place as opposed to being forced to live in a country ruled by, say, Prince Reza Pahlavi. It's always going to be the lesser of two evils.
Yeah, a lot of people don't. A lot of the pro-regime people are thinking about it more in short term rather than the long-term consequences of this. They don't even, a lot of these regime supporters don't even consider the fact that we might end up with the Pahlavi rule again. They think that is ridiculous. We're not going to have that. They're more concerned about in the short term, are they being humiliated, or can they show that we are on the winning side of this, that we're winning this? Okay, what they're fearing right now is not like, oh no, what if the Islamic Republic falls and Pahlavi returns? What they're feeling is, what if our enemies are happy because like we want to be able to humiliate our enemy on social media, not the other way around, right? And this is why the most sensitive thing to these people is Islamic Republic officials demonstrating weakness rather than anything that you could actually see with your own eyes on the battlefield. Okay, because there's always a spin. You could kill so many leaders and destroy so many of their bases, and these people will come out and explain to you why they're still winning. Okay, but the only way that they cannot deny that they're losing is if the Islamic Republic capitulates, because there would be no need for capitulation if you're winning everything, right? Even if you give in the smallest amount of things. Imagine, forget the nuclear things, even the smallest capitulation on the most unimportant thing on the negotiating table, and regime supporters would be like, but why? We had the upper hand in everything. We should be asking for the maximum. Why are we agreeing to anything that they're asking us? So any capitulation by the Islamic Republic breaks the fantasy that they're winning this war, and that's why they get more angry with their own regime officials than the Americans or Israelis, because they provide the narrative that maybe you're not winning this.